Welcome back to Identity Stack. This is Dr. Sarah Austin, technical writer at Key Data Cyber. This time, I'm thrilled to be joined by Brian Read, Chief Technology Officer at Key Data Cyber, to talk about an emerging identity problem, securing agentic AI. Thank you so much for joining me, Brian.
You're welcome, Sarah. Happy to be here.
So let's dive right in. Agentic AI has quickly become one of the hottest tech trends of 2025. But what is it exactly?
Well, to talk about agentic AI, let's start by defining what AI agents are. AI agents are autonomous software systems that can perceive their environment. They can make decisions based on their goals or objectives, and they can take actions to try and reach that goal. Again, all autonomously by reasoning through their decision-making process. So very different than traditional software agents. Quite often these agents use large language models as their, quote unquote brain to try and understand natural language and make decisions. And the whole advent of generative AI and LLMs over the last little while has supercharged these agents to really make them much more powerful than traditional automation has been over the last 10 years. So it's useful to contrast what an agent is with what an LLM prompt is, which is what we're all used to over the last 2 years from places like ChatGPT. An LLM prompt just answers a single question and does a great job at that. AI agents, on the other hand, have their own goals. They work autonomously, and they can actually take action towards those goals. So that's what an agent is, an AI agent. Now, what is agentic AI? Agentic AI is the framework for allowing these agents to collaborate with each other and collaborate with other humans to accomplish their goals, a larger goal. Turns out that single agents are very powerful, but when they collaborate, they become even more powerful, much more powerful. So with agentic AI systems, agents can work together. And this is similar to how a human team would work together, different personalities with different skills combining to solve a complex problem.
Can you give an example of how AI agents might actually work together in practice?
Sure. Examples always help. I'll use an example from the field of identity because that's what most of our listeners are interested in. Let's consider a typical access request workflow. Let's say a user wants privileged access to the corporate payroll system. In this type of a scenario, maybe you have 4 agents working together. Each agent's going to make decisions on their own. They're going to have specialized instructions, and they're going to be built for a specific task. You might have one agent that receives the access request, and that sort of kicks off the whole process and coordinates the whole process. That's that one agent's job. Second agent might be the approver, might be able to approve the request. That agent would check against access management policies, check against compliance initiatives, all the different reasons why you might approve or deny an access request. A third agent might provision the request. So if it's approved, that agent would be responsible for granting the access to the payroll system. And then a fourth agent might be working to log and audit changes and make sure that everything that's being done is being done within compliance. So you've got 4 agents, each performing a specific task, coordinating their activities and working together, and with minimal human touch to securely onboard some user. So you might be thinking, well, we've already got that process. It's already done by humans and it's already pretty good. Why would agentic AI be any better? Well, when you think about it, this request system would be a lot faster than with humans in the loop. It would be less burden on staff to keep performing these activities, and it would be more accurate when you're granting approval. The approver could take into account literally hundreds of different rules and concepts before they grant approval. And each one of these agents would work on its own, so they could also make decisions that a human could also make or may not even think of making, like suggesting alternatives. So in that way, the agentic solution to the access request problem, just to use one very specific example, could be a sort of a generational improvement over what we're doing today.
I know organizations have been dealing with security challenges for generative AI and large language models for the past few years. Are the challenges with agentic AI similar?
So this is a common question. Organizations are quite familiar with the risks from large language models and generative AI from all the work that's been taking place in the last few years, but they're less familiar with the risks for AI agents and agentic AI. But like generative AI, there's definitely overlap between the two. But agentic AI introduces new layers of risks. So like generative AI, it inherits concerns around data leakage, prompt injection. We've all seen this in our own experiences with LLMs, where we can trick the AI into revealing things. That was one of the common early threats that was identified early on. Hallucinations, that's another problem, a risk from large language models. They give you an answer with 100% certainty. That's wrong. So, these are things that we're already quite familiar with, and these are risks that have been attacked over the last few years by organizations that are deploying large language models. Agents bring sort of new risks to the game, though. They do suffer from those types of weaknesses. Agents can act autonomously and take action. So all of a sudden that raises the stakes quite a bit. Because agents can take action, now you've got other risks introduced by the agents themselves, namely things like they can access data that they weren't supposed to, and they could pass that on to another agent, which is even more dangerous. An agent could perform an insecure action against your compliance policy. An agent could make a configuration change to something because they can do these types of actions, and that could expose your data. So really, the foundational risks are similar to AI, but agentic AI, increases the stakes quite a bit by giving systems the power to act. And now you've increased the level of risk within your organization, and you need to take appropriate countermeasures to kind of counteract that risk.
So to build on that, how would you categorize the different risks that agents will introduce to organizations as they become more widely deployed?
So basically, we're seeing three groups of risks introduced by agents. The first group is the traditional generative AI risks like data leakage, prompt injection, hallucinations, those types of traditional generative AI risks. But beyond that, because again, agents take action and interact with their environment, agents are introducing risks that we see as analogous to both human users and machine users. So you also get risks from these two groups of areas. For example, on the human identity side, agents are making decisions and they're accessing resources just like people do. So, you have this risk of over-provisioning, you have a risk of impersonation, someone stealing credentials, if these identities used by the agents aren't well managed. You've also got machine identity risks because these agents are acting, like service accounts. They're running nonstop. They're running very quickly. They're taking actions faster than most humans can react to without actually, requiring human intervention. So you need things like strong authentication, machine identity authentication, monitoring, and lifecycle controls, just like we do for bots and for automated systems. So in addition to the traditional generative AI risks, we've also got groups of risks that are closely related to the risks we have for human users and closely related to the risks we have for machine identities.
So it sounds like securing agents is in large part an identity problem. What types of identity controls will be required to secure this army of enterprise agents in the future?
Yeah, we absolutely see this as an identity problem. And, it's still early days in terms of solutioning. Some vendors are starting to provide solutions and a roadmap for future solutions. Some of the early strategies we're seeing from these vendors is extending their identity controls into areas that are specific and unique to agentic AI. I'll go through some of the controls that we're seeing, and you might recognize some similarities between your existing identity security controls. Things like agent discovery and inventory. We need to know what agents exist, where they operate, and what they have access to. Lifecycle management, from creation of the agents to the deactivation of the agents. Continuous authentication and monitoring. These agents are working autonomously, accessing a lot of different resources, so we need to know what they're doing. We need to continuously authenticate them and monitor what they're doing, and enforcing least privileges and just-in-time access as well. So these are terms, lifecycle management, discovery, just-in-time access. should seem very familiar to organizations that have a mature identity program. So no matter what vendors eventually release products and have the best roadmap for tools in these areas, identity controls will definitely be kind of the foundation for what they're developing.
Before you go, what would you like to leave our listeners with when it comes to securing agentic AI?
Well, because of my role, I tend to see everything through the lens of identity. But in this case, I do believe that securing agentic AI is an identity problem at its core. These agents are behaving like users, human or machine. They make autonomous decisions, they access systems and data, they do it very quickly. They're doing it all at machine speed, 24/7, without any sort of human oversight. So, what that means is they come with all the challenges of human identities and all the risks of machine identities sort of all rolled into one. So the bottom line is, agents are eventually coming to your enterprise. If we miss out on the opportunity to apply identity governance, you're going to open up your organization to serious risk. Securing agentic AI really starts with identity, and identity needs to be front and center as the tech continues to evolve. So as we see vendors come onto the scene and as agents start to appear within your organization, you always need to keep that in mind as we move forward.
That's fantastic. Practical advice for security leaders. Brian, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insights with us today. It's been incredibly valuable. And to our listeners, if your organization hasn't begun to address the security challenges of agentic AI, be sure to visit us at keydatacyber.com, where you can schedule a complimentary workshop to assess your security architecture and receive a roadmap to a secure, scalable IAM strategy for your organization.